All right, hello. We're going to do Michael Lewis's The Mansion today. For those of you who don't know, Michael Lewis is a rich and famous and extremely talented, by the way, that nonfiction writer. One of the probably great sort of kind of maybe following a little bit in the new journalist school that began with Tom Wolfe and others back in the 70s, and he may be continuing that tradition a little bit. Um, and again, along with maybe Malcolm Gladwell and Michael Pollan and some others, really is among our most esteemed and successful. A guy with both critical and sort of commercial success. His books have sold a zillion copies. There was Liar's Poker that came out in the '80s, which I'm not going to pull out of the shelf behind me here. There's The Big Short, Boomerang. He wrote The Blind Side, a very different book for him. Anyway, he's gotten double segments on 60 Minutes. He's immensely successful writer, and is just a spectacular storyteller. He really is, and that's what really makes his writing sort of pop and stand out. He, and his beat is the financial world, and that can be a very abstract and a difficult world to make interesting to the lay reader. But Lewis is that is his genius. He's just brilliant at it. And The Big Short, by the way, the well worth reading, and almost all of his books really are. But also, it was made into a wildly entertaining and extremely well done film a few years back. It's really worth watching. Big Short. You actually will learn a little bit if you don't know anything about the 2008 financial crisis and what caused it. And that is where this piece is also concerned with, right? It's a piece called The Mansion, and this is about Lewis's sort of hapless misadventures, and he lives out in San Francisco now, and he goes back to New Orleans, his home city, to write a book, I guess, and he rents, and he's been very successful in these years since. And he rents what he labels the mansion. He knows immediately which house it is. I guess there is a street or a couple of blocks in New Orleans where the wealthiest people live, where the mansions are. And apparently, this is even a mansion among the other mansions. It's highly entertaining. He's got a terrific sense of humor. And with it also, he is really using his sort of little story as a sort of microcosm of the larger national story, the American story of the 2008 financial crisis and what caused it, which was a housing bubble, which was real estate prices being massively inflated. I'm not going to get too into credit default swaps and things like that. But it just got massively overinflated and then kind of popped in 2008, and really, I'm still not sure the country just said. And here we are, 2020 is completely recovered from it because I think Trump may have been elected because of this. So they had all kinds of echoing sort of ramifications, and I think we've lost trust because basically nobody went to jail for doing that. The people with their hands on the spigot, putting all those bad loans out, I think has really put a serious doubt just throughout the entire American culture that I think we still haven't gotten over. But Lewis's sort of a point here, and I think it's an honest and fair one, is that we can scream about Countrywide and all the bad banks and some of the predatory loaning, all of which there's a lot of truth to all of that. But for him, the real sort of original sort of a single-celled organism, at the center of this that grows out of that is, it seems to be something distinctly American about wanting to live in a house beyond our station, beyond what we can afford. And again, in a well-written and amazingly sort of clever piece here, he's basically, The Mansion is essentially a satirical haunted house story, right? And there's some, and as the story goes, as the essay goes on, the house seems to be take on more and more sort of anthropological qualities. He really he keeps speaking of the house as having kind of a mind and will of its own. And there's all kinds of weird little things he puts in, including some of the scenes, these sort of cliched scenes we see in haunted house movies, right? Like, originally Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt had lived at this house, so it's obviously basically the happy moving in where the kids are all excited, and eventually you get where it starts, the air conditioning goes on and off simply by itself, and it starts to change all the people living in there, right? Even the young girls, and I'm the, and again, this is sort of done tongue in cheek. The young girls start to dress differently for school because they're living in there, they're from the what their friends or friend's mother labels the Daddy Warbucks house, and they start to feel like they have to wear nicer clothes to school and things. And the water bill is exorbitant. It's the house that needs the water, and eventually they are sort of driven out of the house when, again, in New Orleans, which is an extremely hot, humid climate, the AC all breaks down on them. I guess in July or all, middle of the summer. There's even that amazing sort of scene again, very reminiscent in the and if this was a haunted house story, right? This is where the kids go to the library. They start looking for like the microfiche and stuff down on the computers, and they find the history of the house, right? And some woman like murdered expert in her fucking family or something in there, right? And there's kind of a scene where we get the history of this house, and what we learned about it is initially it was owned by somebody who should own it, which was, I think, an oil baron. And initially built this house. And it was one of those uber wealthy captains of industry, think Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or something, or Steve Jobs in our time. That was that's who should own this house, someone like that. But then over the years, different people. There was the story of the lawyer, which was much funnier. And it seemed that again, I do think the connection of human greed, which is a very primal, I think it has primal, probably evolutionary sort of origins in our being, right? Greed being this scarcity sort of mentality and this need to sort of cluster after resources and to collect as many as we have. First of all, that moves us up. We've always lived in social hierarchies, and those who have the most wealth get highest into the hierarchy. The higher you are, the better your life is, the better your children's lives and your genes are more, guaranteed to have or not guaranteed, but have much greater chance of reproduction and things like that. So that some of it is that, and again, this fear that wasn't all. We live in this world of affluence now. That wasn't always true. So I think there's a kind of primal sort of thing being kind of sort of tapped into and hijacked by what was again a lot of predatory lending rather, and things like that, where banks were sort of doing some really shady shit. Let's just put it that way. And anyways, but people are quick to believe they can afford a house bigger than they have. And why is that? Again, we rank, adults rank each other by the size of their houses. I live in Fairfield County here, and there's some very wealthy towns near me. And it's funny, I'm at Stanford, but on one side of Stanford is Greenwich, which is a lot of old money, in Greenwich. And they kind of know how to be rich. They've been rich for a long time. They're the ones who support Lincoln Center and the arts sort of are sort of low key or lower key for the most part about it. Darien, another town, is much is also very wealthy, but it's a much newer sort of wealth. And you're probably a little bit more likely to see red sports cars and things like that driving around there, and also these sort of McMansions they go up with, which are these big, huge houses that have sort of. God, if I was going to spend that much money on a house, I think I'd want the stonework and the slate roof and some really cool architectural design. And they don't seem to really care about any of those things. They just these big, ugly sort of Lego-looking houses. But it's because we do adults really do rank each other like that, and I do think that's a lot of what's driving some of the behavior Lewis is commenting on here. And when we first get in there, right, the first thing he notices is all the wasted space. And the living room was the size of a ballroom. There were closets the size of small bedrooms, things like that. He finds one door in a hallway somewhere. He said he'd been there 3 weeks at that point. He didn't even never noticed it before, opened it, and it was a huge walk-in closet. And he said, he goes, I shut the door behind me and decided I'd try to forget about it. He goes, but the thought did occur to me as I was walking away. I really could use more clothes. And it seems to have that effect on the right. And it is a bit of a burden, more so than you would. None of us who've never had money, we only ever imagine money's going to be great once we find if and when or whatever we ever do have it. But there's a pool house that seems kind of ridiculous. It was a saltwater pool, by the way, which he doesn't realize for weeks himself. But also the pool house, until he actually uses the pool house, and he's like, wow, how did I ever get by without one, right? And they quickly acclimate, and that is also a phenomenon. I know there's a psychological kind of marketer's term for this, which is not popping into my head. I'm sorry, but people tend to very quickly get used to it. Like you can buy a brand new, whatever a Ferrari is on you, whatever your dream car is, and it's awesome. But boy, within a month or so, it really does kind of wear off, and you get used to. It does not provide. We overestimate the amount of, and especially the duration of happiness the purchasing things gives us. But again, he's quickly becoming accustomed. His children even are. They all start acting a little differently. They start to call one another. He said he'd never lived in a house before where if he shouted at the top of his lungs, everyone else in the house couldn't hear him. And now he was living in such a house, and he and his wife are calling one another. There's one funny scene where I guess he was trying to get some work done, and the wife his wife was going somewhere. I guess the kids were driving him a little crazy, and she calls him. She's like, "Where are you?" She's like, he goes, "I'm watching the kids. Where are you?" Well, I guess he was being a little snotty with her. She's like, "Well, you can't be watching. They're too close because they're with me." Might also be a commentary on mothers and fathers. They're a little bit going on. But anyway, it's a very entertaining piece throughout. We get we also learn about the sort of gruesome death of a cat, and that there's an elevator in this house, and apparently a cat had once been decapitated. The kids get stuck in it. And then there's all this house, it's a huge house, but then there's no privacy. And that's almost reminded me of that Great Gatsby line, by Jordan, when she says to, I think it was Owl Eyes in the library there, I love big parties, and small parties there's no privacy. Boy, there's a lot of truth, I think, to that counterintuitive truth, but that's what made it interesting. But anyway, in the end, the Lewises do leave this place, and and again, there was one great scene too in the history where we got the lawyer, and how I don't think I finished that either. When he's looking into the history of the house, the lawyer had been completely ruined trying to keep up with the payments for this house, because it was beyond. Lawyers are upper middle class. Lawyers make good livings, and maybe the elites of the elites, or if your name is on the partnership, you get partners. Maybe you really do become wealthy, but most lawyers don't. Most of them earn, they're a little like doctors, earn very, very good livings. They can live very comfortably, but they are upper middle class. They're not upper class. And this lawyer apparently started doing some really shady deals with working with his the other side of the lawsuits and things he was on, got caught and had to sort of resign in disgrace, or he was going to be disbarred. So it totally ruined him. There was another woman who I guess had been in a bad divorce, right, which I don't know, she may have still been the official owners when the Lewises may have moved into it. I'm not sure. But again, was trying to sell, had redone the whole house, and in doing so, I guess put gold medallions on the ceiling and everything else. And spent an exorbitant amount of money. I think it was something like $20 million or $50 million or something. And then that line, loses use in the house as it had a tendency to do, something like it. Refused to give the money back. So the woman just could not sell the house. The housing market has crashed, and now she can't get the money back. She sunk into it. And so anyway, it has that kind of a rich history. It draws people, right? There's people knocking on the doors, and he said it was almost like being, back in feudal Europe, wondering if he had any work for him and things like that. All kind of, people in town wanting to take him out to shake him down for donations and things. And the water bill was crazy. It's not that they were drinking the water; the house needed the water, right? And anyway, it was an entertaining piece, but also instructional, and you got some real information, and he kind of weaves into the piece, right, about the actual 2008 financial crisis and what caused it, and the great last line there was after they finally do leave, and one of the daughters is with the wife on the way home, and they stop at Hearst Castle on the way, and she raises her hand, I guess, at the end of the tour, and asks why the castle is so small. And again, anyway, that's Michael Lewis's The Mansion, well worth, and a lot of things by Mr. Lewis worth reading.